Well, welcome back to the Munn Avenue News podcast brought to you by Munn, M-U-N-N, avenuepress.com. And I am delighted today to bring you two good friends and talented people who will talk about websites for authors and what makes them great and how you might accomplish that, how important it is for you. So I'll introduce my two friends here. Steve Bennett first, who is a full-time author of more than 50 books, both in collaboration and ghosted nonfiction business works. He co-authored a parenting book with his wife that sold over 1 million copies. So he knows about writing books. He founded AuthorBytes 24 years ago, and AuthorBytes builds websites for authors, many of whom are New York Times bestsellers and mid-list writers and independent authors as well. And his partner, Ken, is the tech side of AuthorBytes. He might even be part human, part digital. He lives and breathes bits and bytes. So he's the bytes part of AuthorBytes, an expert in internet security for the past 30 years. He's been involved with many web-based ventures. And as CTO of AuthorBytes, Ken is responsible for maintaining and enhancing the network, making sure your website comes up all the time and quickly. And also, he's amazing in terms of best practices for security, SEO, speed, mobile-friendly design, and adhering to all the crazy regulations we deal with online. So, welcome, Steve and Ken. Thank you so much for being here. I'm really looking forward to hearing you share some of your wisdom. I will mention up front that Steve and Ken built a fantastic website for me, charleslevin.com. That's my author website, and I've written 6 books, and they've updated the website and kept it fresh. And there's a whole lot of features on there. So I know personally how good they are, and they have quite a team behind them as well. So tell us, Ken or Steve, what inspired you to start this business in the first place?
Well, I had just finished a stint as a media trainer and message development expert for tech companies. The tech bubble burst in 1999, and pretty much there wasn't a lot to do. And had an opportunity to work with someone to create a website for a best-selling author who was Random House. And Random House just loved the thing and started sending us more New York Times best-selling authors. And I figured, all right, this is a good 1 year gig and until I figure out what's next. Well, what next is, 23 years later. And it evolved from, oh, this is kind of cool to something that um, I saw was extremely important, that having a website was going to become a very important part of being an author for many, many reasons. And we could talk about that later in the show. But essentially, 1 year gig turned 23, and here we are, and we've evolved into probably the largest player in the space.
Well, yeah, for sure. You've built over 900 websites at last count, right? So
Something like that.
I think that counts as experience. And since you've been in it so long, I mean, there are probably authors out there that built websites 5 or 10 years ago. I mean, how's that changed? What's new and what should we be aware of for a 2025 website?
Well, there's been a lot of technology changes over the years. Technology is always evolving. One of the more important shifts that we've noticed from looking at all the analytics data that we've had going back several years now, we've started to see this shift from users being on their desktops, sitting at the computer, browsing their sites, to more of a mobile environment. And so we're finding now that the majority of traffic going to our clients' websites is actually either on a mobile phone or on a tablet. So it's important that your website will look good on either one of those devices, or any of those devices, I should say, and make sure that those users that are coming to read or learn about your book and learn about your work, that they could consume that information however they want, whenever they want, on whatever they want.
In the old days, a site was simply, it would shrink down on a phone and you have to pinch and zoom. Okay. Terrible idea because you have to hunt for links, etc. Okay. A good mobile friendly site dynamically rearranges itself automatically based on whatever screen it's being viewed on. And okay, it minimizes internal links so that you've got to go hunting all over the place. One of the things that we do before any site launches is a mobile check. And sometimes we'll modify the graphics, the way things are presented, so that we can make sure when it gets down to a phone level, it's going to be a great experience, because people have even less patience with a phone than they do sitting there with their desktop or laptop.
And so there's been a lot of customers that we've worked with that have, tried to do things on their own, and, it doesn't quite work out when they're trying to build things on their own to make it work on all those different devices. So that's one of the big reasons why people will come to work with us, is that, we have a lot of experience in manipulating those themes to make them friendly for everybody. In terms of interaction with the websites, people's attention spans have dropped significantly over the years. So it's important now more than ever to make sure that we're giving a good first impression to those readers. When they land on that site, we want it to be super fast, so that way we don't lose the reader just by them getting bored waiting for the site to load. But once the site does load, we want to present them with something that's intriguing, pulls them in, and encourages them to learn more about that author and their work.
Cool. Yeah. So let me even back up and ask a basic marketing question. And this is probably for you, Steve, but uh, I'm an author. Why the heck do I need a website to begin with?
Oh my God, I haven't been asked that for 10 years. So you should know better. No, I know we're just doing an interview.
I know, but I want you to share with
Okay.
us.
Think about anything you hear about. You hear an interview, you learn about a product. What do? You go to the web and you'll look up whoever it is, whatever it is. And in this case, it's whoever it is. Of the hundreds of sites that we've built, okay, 99% are author-centric websites rather than book-centric websites. We do have a few where it's just for the book. That might happen if a CEO of a company, and we've got a few, has written a novel and wants to disconnect from that and keep it separate. Or somebody has a specific business and wanted to have a separate presence for their romance novels under a pen name, whatever. Okay. I just want to clarify, when we say it's author-centric, that does not mean that the first thing on the site should be a humongous picture of you. I mean, it might be appropriate, okay, depending on who you are, but author-centric in the sense that if you can get your own domain name, okay, that's you, that's fantastic. That's going to help you a lot. That's, anyways, your name is going to be in the header. There should be a hero graphic, which is about the book, and then content blocks, okay, that fall below that, that invite people to drill down, learn a little more about the book, learn a little more about you, read the praise. Praise is critical. If you've got it, get it out there. If you don't, as soon as you got some, put it out there. What else has he or she written? Put it out there. So that home page is a quick scan, okay? And in fact, today's sites are more like giant phone sites where you scroll down. Instead of using your thumb, you use your mouse. But the bulk of these are about authors, and that's what people want. In fact, okay, if you talk to any publicist, independent or in a publishing company, they're going to tell you you market an author, not the book. The book follows the author, okay? So the website is, sure, it's about the author, and the current book happens to be the product that you want out there. But people are going to come and look for you, Charles Levin, okay? That first, and then maybe your book second. So the web, first place that people go to learn about you. And I want to tie into what Ken just said about that first experience, okay? You have 3 to 5 seconds to make that first impression. And yeah, a lot has to happen in that. Everything has to conspire to making people want to drill down into the site. They have to feel good about it. It has to match what they're writing about. They have to like you, okay? They have to want to be compelled to drill deeper into the site. Load time, it sounds like a boring technical thing. We've had people come to us with sites loading in 30 seconds for the home page. Forget it. They're gone. People vote with their mouse and walk with their mouse. Thanks to Ken's incredible work, a plug for him on the network that he's built out. Some of our sites load in 500 milliseconds, Ken, that's thousandths of a second. That's insanely fast. And that's why we believe that design, development, and hosting is part of an integrated package, and that's what we offer. So why a website? Because that's where people are. Why a website? Because you can deliver an experience about why people should care about you, what you're writing about, your books. People don't come to a website and say, oh, that's it, click buy the book. You have to woo them. And there's no better way than a good dynamic website.
Yeah, and just to go a little further on that. Well, Ken is a speed demon, and connections are, if you're mobile, sometimes you're in a cafe or the Wi-Fi is a little dicey, and speed matters. You're right, because our attention span and our expectation is much greater. Also, Google counts speed as one of its parameters for showing your website in search results.
Absolutely.
So if your site is slow, you get demoted. If your site is fast, you get promoted, which you absolutely want to do. And um, another thing I hear from authors too is, oh, I'm on social media, I'm on Facebook, I'm on Instagram. That's where everybody's going anyway. But ultimately, you need that home base. The website is really kind of the foundation, right, of your marketing efforts. On my website, that you brilliantly built, I'm very active in blogging on that website. So maybe and send my readers there. Maybe you could talk a little bit about content, um, blogging, and things that will make your website more effective, other than a great homepage. Get a
Sure.
little deeper. What do we do that gets a little deeper in that website?
Sure. I think one of the other points to make, though, too, Charlie, is that, when you ask the question of, well, why do I need a website? And you're absolutely right. There's certainly audiences on places like Facebook and X and Threads and Instagram, and those are fantastic to use, and you can use those tools to help promote your work and drive people to the site. But at the end of the day, the website is yours. You can choose what you're going to put on it. You're not going to have a corporate CEO or a marketing firm that's managing the ads on those platforms tell you what you can and cannot do, or what you can and cannot say. And so it's important, I think, for for authors and for our customers to understand that this is really their canvas to make what they want. We're going to help them build best practices in there to attract those readers and attract the audience. But it's their open canvas to tell their story and to talk about themselves and their great work. And so the other key piece of that is, specifically with AuthorBytes, we work and use WordPress. We're a WordPress agency. We build all of our sites on it, and all of our sites are hosted on a managed WordPress hosting environment. And we can talk about that a little bit more. But the key piece here is that WordPress literally powers 40% of websites out there, and so it's ubiquitous. It's everywhere, and if for whatever reason, you decide, hey, you know what, we want to work with a different hosting company now, or I want to work with a different designer or developer, it's portable. and you can't do that in social media. You're locked into those platforms. So I think having that website with that freedom of creativity and freedom to make your own business choices is a really powerful thing for an author.
Yeah, yeah, good point. And Steve, you said something else before that I was thinking about too, which is that the more effective websites are focused on the author first and the book second in a way. I mean, and I think about how I read, and if I find an author whose books I like, if they've written more than one book, I want to read the other books that they wrote. So how am I going to find that out quickly? And maybe the quickest way is to go to their website and see all the books they wrote. And then, of course, there's buy buttons and Amazon links and Barnes and Noble links and all those things that'll allow me to buy the book. All right, so Steve and Ken, can you give us some examples of sites that you've built that have been successful for the authors in some fashion or another?
Sure. I think one of the things that we need to determine, though, first is what is successful. And so when we start working with our clients and go through the discovery phase of their project, we'll ask, what is your goal here? Are you trying to sell a whole lot of books? Are you a business customer that's trying to get new leads for your consulting business? Are you just trying to get name recognition for a particular product that you're selling? There's a lot of different goals there. And so once we define what those goals are, we can then manipulate the website to meet and hopefully exceed those goals, and then determine, all right, well, if our goal is to get a whole bunch of traffic and a bunch of readers, then we could look at our page views and our time on the site and see how they're interacting with it. Or maybe it's to get new business referrals. So we look at how many leads converted, how many users clicked on those buy links to get to Amazon or Barnes or wherever they're choosing to purchase their book from. So I think it's really important to understand when you're going into this that while you start with a blank page, you want to make sure that you have some sort of a structure so that you can determine, has the website been a successful endeavor for you? And quite frankly, that goes for the social media and newsletter campaigns as well.
So, in terms of success stories and putting it in, Ken's perspective here, sometimes it's to get an agent, okay? And we'll do a very simple site. It's very hard to get an agent without having some kind of a professional web presence there. And we've built a number of what we call AuthorBytes essential sites or basic sites, small sites that don't require a huge investment that we put up and people have gotten agents. So that's, one level there. We have some highly successful authors who are already successful, but are enjoying the way that they can easily, through us, present their works. We work with Suman Kidd. We work with Alice Hoffman, Khaled Hosseini. And these are people who are at the peak of their career. Maxine Petro, who writes with James Patterson. These sites are built so that as they have new works going out, that they're quickly added to their site. And the site is built in a way that the structure of it will relate to the atmosphere of that particular book. We love all of our sites, and we have a great client base. One of my favorites is Madeline Martin, who had been writing Regency romances, and she was also a computer programmer before that, and had a brainstorm for a book about the last bookshop in London, and instant New York Times bestseller, and completely changed the arc of her career. And her site was loading in, what was that, 60 seconds per page or something utterly unworkable. Anyhow, we worked through the branding process with her. We developed a fast, modern site. She's now 3 books past the first one, but always about bookstore libraries in London. And her career has taken off, and she gets a lot of traffic on her site, and she uses it very well.
I will also mention that because we do have authors and listeners who work with WFWA, so you might want to mention what that is and what your experience has been there.
Women's Fiction Writers Association, WFWA. We have built numerous sites for their members. We were their platinum sponsor for their 10-year anniversary. And we love working with them and their authors. And the sites range from some simple one-pagers all the way up to very complex multi-page sites.
Yeah, and I'll mention too that I know you have a number of marquee name clients, but also when you built the website for me, my first book was up there. I mean, and it was independently published. So um, it's more affordable than you think. And it's much more nuanced than these sort of packaged website things you find out there. I mean, you guys are, authors and technical experts, and the website can do a whole lot more than I think people really realize that it can do for you. So let me ask you this question. What are some of the common mistakes that you see that, other than speed, which we've already talked about, common mistakes that you see uh, that are made with author websites that authors may not even be aware are mistakes?
Well,
Charlie, go ahead.
to start off, I mean, the biggest mistake is one of the simplest, actually, and that is where do you put your website? And that comes down to hosting. There's a lot of companies out there. I won't specifically name names, but they'll sell you hosting for, as low as $3 a month. Um, and, put as much as you want up there and hope for the best. And the problem is that a lot of these hosting companies, they're selling on volume, so they're packing as many sites as possible onto a single server, and then please don't crash is what they're hoping. And what ends up happening is if that server gets busy. And other sites on that server get busy, your website is going to start to load slower. That's going to affect your Google search rankings based on the speed. It's going to affect the experience that your readers will have with your website. And so,
What do you guys do about that?
so funny you should ask that. So we've partnered with many different hosting companies over the years, and we've been sadly disappointed with most of them. So we went out and worked with a team to build our server stack, which is all the software that runs on our instances, and we built our own hosting network. And so everything that we build at AuthorBytes, we host. So this way, there's no finger pointing either between, oh, the developer didn't code it right, or oh, it's your server stack is not up to par to run the website right. It's kind of like when you buy a Mac computer and it's got Mac OS built on it. It's made specifically for that hosting environment. And the other great thing is if you do have a website that you're happy with, but maybe your hosting is not up to par, we can assist authors with that as well and bring that onto our hosting network. So, making sure that you have that speed and availability, that's something that we have built in to our platform. The other big thing is, just like your workstation on your desk, you have to make sure that that software stays up to date. There's constantly bugs being found in different applications, or malware trying to get in there and beat up your site and infect it with spam, building link farms and all that jazz. And so one of the big things that we do that's a little bit different is we provide managed WordPress hosting. Well, what does that mean? That means that we have technology that is monitoring and watching that site 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, making sure that not only is the site staying up and running on the server, but that the core WordPress is being updated, all the plugins are getting updated, the theming components are getting updated to make sure that it's as rock solid as possible. The other big piece is there's tendency sometimes from clients to want to put anything and everything on the site. And sometimes, looking at it from the perspective of, the old KISS method, to keep it simple, is a better approach. And this kind of goes back to what we were talking about earlier with goals, trying to determine, what are we trying to do here? If these are our goals, we want to look at the content that we're putting out there to find out, will those pieces of content help enhance and meet those goals? And so, Steve, maybe you could talk a little bit more about our process there with our project.
Sure. I'd like to go back and address Charlie's question. I mean, there's two big buckets for mistakes. One is technical, and Ken just handled that very nicely. The other is in terms of the way that you brand yourself and the way that you conceive of the site. Okay. If you think of the site as being a big marketing flyer or brochure, essentially an expanded version of your Amazon page, you're going to get a flyer out of it that people go, oh, okay. Think of the website as an opportunity to introduce yourself, your work, your next work, what's important to you, to provide what we call value-added information. Give us the backstory. Tell us about some interesting things that you learned about while researching, and blog about it even better. Blogging is the single best thing you can do in terms of helping your SEO, and Ken can talk about that. But think of this as your digital proxy, okay? Your digital doppelganger. You can't be there to everybody in the world 24/7. You can be with one person or two people or a small group. This is where your website is your substitute, your proxy, and it has to speak well for you. If it does that, then that site will be an important tool in your toolkit, okay? Which is your site, your social media, things you might do on Substack in terms of getting yourself out there, podcasts that you do, so promotions that you run. It all needs to tie together, both graphically in terms of brand continuity, but in terms of this is your best foot out there. It's not, hey, I got a book, want to buy it? And that is a waste of time.
Yeah, and there's certain, you point out, well, you could put a flyer up there, but how do you really want people to interact with your website is a question. And like in my example, um, you have, I'm a big fan of audiobooks, so all my books are an audiobook. So there's an audiobook page, but also there's audio samples that they can click on and play. Um, I mentioned before my reader email list. I really want people to sign up for my email list because then I can engage them in an ongoing way. So there's a place to sign up for my newsletter. And when they enter their name and email address, it automatically drops into my email platform. I don't have to like transfer anything or do anything. So there's certain integrations that you guys are able to do with things like MailChimp and MailerLite and Substack and those kinds of things that will allow you to not only be a landing page for readers, but also integrate with your other efforts, which is pretty cool. So tell me, what advice would you have for a new author starting out that maybe doesn't have a website now and they're publishing their first book? What would you advise? What's a way to start with AuthorBytes? And by the way, it's AuthorBytes.com, just in case people are missed that in the header. Steve.
When you go to authorbytes.com, fill out the form at the bottom under promo code, put in MUNAV20, and you'll get a 20% discount on design, development, and key services.
That's great.
And I have to put in a shameless plug for Ken, is the way that he's built the architecture of all of our sites. It's designed to be modular so that as your needs grow, your site grows with you. In the old days, oh gosh, Charlie, you were doing websites. You
right,
remember?
and I think that's one of your great strengths is that you are responsive. It's not, some places where you might want to get a website, you can only reach somebody through chat, and it's packaged, and there's no customization available. So my website, is quite a bit more involved than it was when I had just the one book. So now, as you point out, like if you go to the homepage of charleslevin.com, my four thrillers are right up there on the banner. And then as you scroll down, you have done a great job both vertically and horizontally with my website, because there's a scroll on the homepage that goes to the audio book and the children's book I wrote and testimonials from readers. But then you can also drill down to get to specific books or news and updates, and then of course my blog, which I is the most active page on my website in general.
Charlie, you had mentioned mailing list. And mailing list is your holy grail. A lot of times people are starting off, well, I don't know anybody, I don't know, I don't have a mailing list. Good. Start with one. And after one, you'll get two. And after two, you'll get three. You can offer an incentive, get an extra chapter, whatever. Give them something. At some point, you're going to look back if you don't have a mailing list and go, wow, I wish I had a mailing list. Some of our clients have massive mailing lists that have built up over the years. And that is so important. And one of the things that we do, and again, I'll give kudos to Ken here, who's developed he doesn't like it when I say pop-up. It is a pop-up, okay, but okay, we do it on what's called exit intent. Track the cursor, no privacy issues, and when the person's going to leave, evidenced by they're getting close to the X on the tab, then it pops up and then it goes away. If you do that at the beginning, people will not like you. We have people who write novels for adults, YA novels, and even children's book. Jacqueline Machard, who's incredibly famous. She was our second client actually, and with us. And she, her site could look like a flea market with everything in it, but it's an organized presentation of Jackie's incredible talent there, and that's the goal with all sites.
Yeah, and besides building a great website for me, as you have done with your many clients you mentioned, um, I owe you guys a lot that goes beyond the website, because as I mentioned in prior podcasts, and I don't know if I named you, Steve, in this, but the Munn Avenue Press, which we've last year worked with 40 authors in 6 countries, is a totally accidental business, and it's your fault, because several years ago, after I had written a few books and they were all Amazon #1 bestsellers, Steve came to me, and I was writing in the morning and marketing and selling my books in the afternoon. And he said, you've done so well with your books. There's a couple of authors who could use some help. Would you be interested in talking to them? And that really was the spark that started this business that's keeping me very busy right now, several years later, because I found I loved working with the authors, and I have a consulting background, and we've been able to replicate many of the successes. Many of the authors we've worked with are best-selling authors now. And some of them have gone to AuthorBytes and built websites with them too. So it's kind of neat how we can work together to help new authors, independent authors, authors that want a Munn Avenue Press imprint, not only publish their books, but with the help of AuthorBytes, promote and market their books too.
Mm-hmm. And by the way, we have no financial connection. We don't do commissions. We don't do affiliate sales. We just want our clients to be in the hands of good professionals. So Ken is really what got you started.
Well, and you've sent many authors our way, and I really appreciate that too. So for more information, and to contact Steve and Ken, do check out AuthorBytes. That's AuthorBytes.com. And of course, if you want to publish a book or need some help editing, designing, and even marketing your book on other platforms and on Amazon, please contact munavenuepress.com. Steve and Ken, thank you so much for sharing your expertise and wisdom with us today. And as I mentioned before, please do check out AuthorBytes.com. So just as a reminder, if you do go to AuthorBytes.com, BYTES.com, there's a Get Started on the homepage, and they are kindly offering to our listeners a promotion, 20% off, if you enter the code MUNAVE, MUNNAVE 20, and sign up to build a website. They will give you a 20% discount. So there's another benefit of listening to the Mun Avenue Muse podcast. Every other Tuesday, we release a new episode of the Mun Avenue Muse, brought to you by Mun, MUNN Avenue Press.com, where we help build and promote best-selling authors. Steve and Ken, thank you so much for joining us today. I hope it was helpful for our authors. I know I learned some new things today as well. So thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks, Charlie.